Snow pressed softly against the wooden cabin walls as the winter wind whispered through the cracks, carrying memories of a life now gone. Inside, an oil lamp flickered gently, casting warm light across the worn table where Eleanor Whitmore, a widow in her late 50s, sat alone with her thoughts. The fire crackled quietly, its warmth never quite reaching the cold space her husband once filled. She had lived through 3 winters without him. 3 winters of silence, of untouched quilts, of empty rocking chairs, of letters she wished she could still write. That evening, as she swept the hearth, her broom bumped something hidden deep beneath the floorboard. Something wooden, something small. She knelt slowly, breath trembling, and lifted out a dust-covered box. A box she had never seen before. A box carved with her husband's handwriting. Open only when you're ready. The fire popped. The wind moaned against the cabin. Her hand shook. Inside that box, she knew without knowing, waited the kind of truth that could break a heart or mend one. Every woman who has lived long enough knows some doors stay closed until the soul is brave enough to open them. Tonight, Eleanor would decide if she was ready. The winter sun rested low over Ash Willow Valley, its pale light slipping between the tall pines that guarded the quiet land. Snow blanketed the ground in soft waves, muffling the world into a kind of peaceful loneliness that only frontier towns truly knew. Smoke curled gently from chimneys farther down the slope, rising into the frosty air like whispered prayers. At the very edge of the valley, sitting alone near the tree line, stood a modest wooden cabin, its logs weathered, its stones cracked by years of cold, and its roof brushed with soft layers of snow. Inside, the warm glow of an oil lamp flickered along the log walls, casting gentle golden light over quilts, shells of handmade pottery, and the rocking chair that never rocked anymore. This was the home of Eleanor Whitmore, a widow of nearly 3 years. At 58, Eleanor moved with the steady grace of a woman who had lived through harsh winters, long journeys, and harder losses. Her hair, silver threaded through brown, was pulled back beneath a woolen kerchief. Her linen dress was simple, patched neatly at the sleeves. A thick shawl wrapped around her shoulders, keeping her warm as she swept the hearth. Her cabin was quiet, too quiet. It had been so ever since Thomas Whitmore, her husband of 34 years, took his final breath one spring morning as sunlight touched his face. He had slipped away peacefully, at least that's what the doctor claimed. But Eleanor knew grief had its own seasons, its own storms. Tonight, as the snow thickened outside and the wind pushed gently against the door, the cabin felt fuller with memory than with life. Eleanor hummed softly, an old lullaby Thomas once whistled while mending harness straps, but her voice wavered before falling silent again. She bent to sweep ashes from a fireplace when her broom struck something solid. Thud, not wood, not stone, something hidden. Eleanor frowned. She knelt, brushing away stray ashes. Running her fingers along the floorboard, she felt a gap, something slight but deliberate. Strange, she murmured. She had swept this hearth thousands of times, through summers of open windows and winters of closed doors, yet she had never felt this. She pressed the edge of the board. It lifted, stiff at first, then gave way. Beneath it, resting in a narrow pocket of darkness, was a small wooden box. Eleanor froze. Her breath caught. Her heartbeat quickened painfully. She reached down with trembling hands and lifted the box from its hiding place. It was light, no larger than a man's hand. Dust coated the top, but beneath it, she could see careful, familiar carving. Thomas's carving. Her throat tightened. She brushed away the dust, and there, etched in his handwriting, were the words, "Open only when you're ready." Eleanor's vision blurred instantly with tears she thought she'd learned to swallow. "Oh, Thomas," she whispered. Her fingers traced the letters. His letters. He had always carved them with such care, sitting by the firelight, humming under his breath while she sewed. He carved spoons, boxes, toys for neighbor children. He carved his love into everything he touched. A warmth spread through her chest, and a heaviness too. Why hadn't she known about this? Why had he hidden it? And why had he left it for her? The wind moaned softly against the cabin walls as Eleanor carried the box to the table. She sat slowly, her bones stiff from years of winter work. The oil lamp flickered in the draft, casting her shadow long across the floor. She held the box in her palms, feeling the wood, smooth from his hands, rough at the edges, warm from her touch. The simple latch gleamed faintly in the lamp's glow. Eleanor swallowed hard. Memories surged, Thomas laughing as they danced in the rain during their courting days. Thomas holding their newborn daughter, who lived only 4 weeks before fever took her. Thomas singing softly as he chopped wood during the first winter in this very cabin. Thomas smiling with that patient warmth whenever she worried over little things. And the last memory, Thomas gripping her hand in his final hour, whispering with broken breath, "There is more I want to tell you, but I fear I won't have the strength." She cried into his shirt that night, cried until he was gone. Now she understood. He had said what he couldn't say aloud. He had left her this. Eleanor's hands trembled. She pressed her palm to the lid. A sudden gust hit the cabin, rattling the window panes. The oil lamp flickered sharply. The fire snapped. For a moment, Eleanor felt something she hadn't felt since the night he died, like Thomas was standing behind her, watching, waiting. She closed her eyes, breath trembling. "Am I ready?" she whispered to the empty cabin. The box felt heavier now, as if holding years of silence, of unspoken truths, of love preserved in wood grain. Eleanor hesitated, heart pounding. Then knock. Eleanor gasped. Her head jerked toward the door. A knock. At this hour? In this snowfall? Another knock, firmer, hurried. Her pulse quickened. She stood slowly, shawl slipping from her shoulders. No one came to her cabin at night. Not since Thomas passed. Not since she had withdrawn into her quiet world. She moved to the door, placing her hand on the latch. "Who's there?" she called. Wind answered. Snow shifted under boots. A man's voice, low, tired, responded. "Mrs. Whitmore? I need your help." Eleanor inhaled sharply. She recognized that voice. It couldn't be. Not after all these years. Her hand shook on the latch. She opened the door, and standing there, snow clinging to his coat, color drained from his face, was a man she hadn't seen since before she married Thomas. A man whose presence once changed the course of her life. His lips parted, breath trembling in the cold. "Eleanor, forgive me for coming this late." Her heartbeat stuttered. "Samuel Carter?" she whispered. "What on earth?" He removed his hat, revealing pain in his eyes. "I'm afraid. I bring news about your husband." The box behind her seemed to pulse in the lamplight. Eleanor staggered. "Samuel, Thomas is gone. 3 years gone." Samuel lowered his gaze. "I know," he said softly, "but what I've come to tell you is something he meant to tell you himself." Her breath froze. "What are you talking about?" Samuel's voice trembled. "Eleanor, the box isn't the only secret Thomas left behind." Her knees weakened. "What do you mean?" Samuel looked up, eyes glimmering with sorrow. "There's more, something he hid from you. Something he begged me to tell you, if ever you found the box." Eleanor's world blurred. "What secret?" she cried, voice cracking. Samuel hesitated, then spoke. "Eleanor, Thomas didn't die the way people said. He didn't just fall ill. A cold shock ripped through her." "What?" she whispered. "Samuel, what do you mean?" Samuel took a breath, and the lantern flickered wildly, as though the truth itself shook the room. "Eleanor, your husband knew he was in danger." Eleanor's heart stopped. Samuel whispered, "And he feared the danger would one day come for you too." Eleanor stumbled backward, gripping the table as the world narrowed. Samuel stepped inside, shutting the door behind him. "Eleanor, there are things you must know." Outside, the wind rose like a warning. Inside, the oil lamp flickered over the box, and the lid rattled, as if something inside it had awakened. The wind howled against the cabin walls, rattling the shutters as if the storm itself wanted to hear Samuel Carter's next words. Eleanor stood frozen, gripping the edge of the table for balance. The small wooden box, Thomas's box, rested beside her, its carved message glowing faintly in the lamplight. Open only when you're ready. But ready for what? Samuel stepped deeper into the room, brushing snow from his coat. He looked older, much older, than the boy Eleanor once knew. His dark hair, once thick and unruly, now held streaks of silver. His face carried lines of a life lived hard and far from home. Yet his eyes, they still held the same earnest sadness, she remembered. Eleanor, he said, voice trembling, sit down. You're shaking. I'm not sitting, she replied, steadying herself on the chair, but refusing to lower her body. Not until you tell me what you mean. What danger? Thomas. Thomas was the kindest man. He kept no enemies. Samuel's expression darkened. Kind men could be the easiest targets, he murmured. Eleanor felt her stomach twist. Tell me, she whispered. Samuel hesitated, his breath fogging the cold air inside the cabin. Thomas didn't die of illness, he said. Eleanor's breath hitched. He continued, and he didn't die suddenly. The doctor lied. Eleanor's knees almost buckled. Lied, she breathed. Why would Dr. Bennett lie about my husband's death? Samuel's jaw tightened. Because Thomas asked him to. The lamp flickered as if startled. Eleanor stepped closer, voice tightening. Samuel, stop speaking in riddles. If Thomas asked him to lie, why? Why would he hide the truth from me? Samuel met her eyes, and the weight in his gaze nearly crushed her. Because Thomas didn't want you to live in fear. Eleanor's heart pounded painfully. Fear of what? She whispered. Samuel took a slow breath, then spoke the sentence that shattered her world. Thomas was being hunted. Silence fell so heavy that even the fire hesitated to crackle. Eleanor stared at Samuel, unable to form words. Hunted? Thomas? Her Thomas, who apologized to birds for scaring them when chopping wood, who fed stray dogs, who never raised his voice even when storms took the crops. No, she whispered weakly. No, that's impossible. Samuel swallowed. Eleanor, Thomas saved my life. Twice. Both times put him in the path of a dangerous man. A man who swore to make him pay. Eleanor pressed her hand to her mouth. Who would want to hurt Thomas? Samuel moved closer to the fire, warming his shaking hands. A man named Elias Vane, he said. The name felt cold, like ice slipping down Eleanor's spine. She had never heard it before, but Samuel's voice carried a dread that told her she should fear it. Thomas crossed him years ago, Samuel continued, but Vane never forgot. When Thomas fell ill last spring, it wasn't sickness, it was poison. Eleanor staggered. No. Samuel, I would have known. I would have seen signs. You did, Samuel said gently. You saw him grow weaker. Pale. You saw his hands shake. You thought it was fever. Eleanor remembered. She remembered every trembling breath, every night she pressed cool cloths to his brow, every whispered prayer she thought went unanswered. She sank slowly into the chair, her shawl slipping to the floor. Thomas, poisoned? She whispered. Who could do such a thing? Someone who followed him to this valley, Samuel said. Someone who wanted something Thomas had. Eleanor's eyes flicked to the box. Samuel followed her gaze. Yes, he said softly. Something in that box. The wind outside lashed at the house. The rafters groaned. Eleanor stared at the box, small, simple, heavy with unseen weight. Samuel, she whispered, what is inside it? He shook his head. I don't know. He never told me. He only said it held the truth, and that the truth could destroy you or set you free. Eleanor's breath came shallow. Samuel continued. Before he died, Thomas sent a message to me through the doctor. Told me to come if you ever found the box. He hoped, he prayed, that you'd never need to open it. Her throat tightened. Thomas, she whispered. Why didn't he tell me himself? Why keep me blind? Samuel knelt in front of her. Because he loved you more than his own peace. He knew if you learned the truth too soon, you'd carry a burden he spent years trying to shield you from. Eleanor wiped her tears, hands trembling fiercely. He knew me, she whispered. He knew I would never open it, unless something forced me to. Samuel nodded. And something did. The wind screamed outside, slamming against the cabin door. Eleanor looked at Samuel, voice hoarse. Why tonight? Why did you come tonight? Samuel's gaze grew somber. Because Elias Vane escaped the territorial prison 2 weeks ago. He crossed the valley days ago. Tracks say he's headed this direction. Eleanor's blood ran cold. He's coming here, she whispered. Samuel nodded slowly. And he wants one thing, whatever Thomas hid in that box. The cabin felt suddenly too small. The fire too warm. The shadows too deep. Eleanor gripped the arms of her chair. Samuel, if Vane is so close, why didn't you send word earlier? I tried, Samuel said. But he travels at night, hides by day. He's clever and dangerous. There are men saying he's been seen near the ridge. Eleanor's heart thundered. Near the ridge? Samuel, that's only a mile from here. He nodded grimly. That's why I had to come. To warn you. And to protect you. Eleanor's breath trembled. Protect me? Samuel, I am nearly 60. I can hardly defend myself against a fox, let alone a man like that. Samuel stepped forward. That's why I'm here. I won't let him harm you, or take what belonged to Thomas. The fire flared, sending sparks upward. The shadows deepened. Eleanor stood slowly, lifted the box from the table, and held it close. If Thomas left something behind that men would kill for, she whispered, then I cannot hide from it. Samuel reached for her shoulder. Eleanor, don't open it yet. Not until we know we're safe. Her eyes softened with grief that never stopped hurting. Samuel, I've already lost everything. I survived his death once. I can bear whatever truth he left. Samuel opened his mouth to protest. Bang. A thunderous slam struck the cabin wall. Eleanor gasped. Samuel spun toward the door, hand on the knife at his belt. Another bang. Closer. And then a man's voice, rough as broken stone, growled through the wood. Eleanor Whitmore. Open the door. Eleanor froze. Samuel paled. The voice came again, slow, dangerous, deliberate. I know you found the box. Eleanor pressed it to her chest. Samuel whispered urgently. Eleanor, get behind me. Now. The lantern flickered violently, casting long shadows across the floorboards as footsteps crunched outside the window. The voice snarled, Open it, or I'll burn the cabin down with you inside. Eleanor's breath broke. Samuel drew his knife. Snow fell heavier. Wind roared. The cabin shook. And then, as if the night itself held its breath, the door latch began to move. Someone was coming in. The metal latch rattled. Violently, once, twice, then stopped. Silence pressed in so thick Eleanor could hear her own heartbeat hammering against her ribs. The oil lamp flickered, shadows trembling across the wooden walls. Snow swept in sheets against the cabin like cold hands clawing at the logs. Samuel held his knife tight, muscles taut, eyes fixed on the door. Stay behind me, he whispered. Eleanor clutched the wooden box to her chest, her fingers trembling. She felt Thomas's carving beneath her palms, each curl of the letters familiar and comforting. Open only when you're ready. She wasn't ready. She knew that now. But danger didn't wait for readiness. A slow, cruel voice seeped through the cracks of the door. Eleanor Whitmore. Do you know how long I've searched? Eleanor's breath stilled. Samuel whispered, Don't reply. But the voice continued, low and deliberate. I know what Thomas had. I know he trusted you to protect it. And I know you found the box. Eleanor's spine stiffened. He knew. How could he know? Samuel glanced back at her, eyes fierce. We will survive this, he whispered. But you listen to me. No matter what he says, do not show him the box. The door shook violently again. Then steps, crunching through the deep snow outside the window. Eleanor turned her head sharply as a dark shadow passed across the frosted glass. Samuel moved toward the window, his knife held low. He's circling, Eleanor whispered. Samuel. He said he'd burn the cabin. He won't do that yet, Samuel murmured. He wants what's inside that box. Fire destroys it. Eleanor's breath shook. You know him. You know his mind. I do, Samuel said darkly. Which is why I know something else. He won't stop. The footsteps stopped on the side of the house. A soft tap on the wooden boards followed. A slow dragging sound, like someone running their fingers or a blade along the wall. A sick shiver raced down Eleanor's arms. Thomas told me. The voice drifted around the cabin, moving from window to window. That if I ever wanted the truth, I'd have to come to you. Samuel's grip tightened on the knife. Eleanor's heart dropped. Thomas spoke to him. The voice continued. And now you found what he hid. That means you're ready. Eleanor swallowed hard. How'd he know the words carved on the lid? Samuel stepped closer to her, shielding her with his body. He's trying to make you panic, Samuel whispered. Don't let him. Eleanor pressed a hand to her chest, trying to steady her breath. But then, another set of footsteps. Soft. Different. Her pulse jumped. 2 people? No, 3. Shadowy figures flickered past the windows. Eleanor's hands trembled so violently she nearly dropped the box. Samuel, he's not alone. Samuel's jaw locked. I fear this. Eleanor's voice cracked. Feared what? That Vane would bring men with him. He never hunts alone. Snow crunched again, this time directly in front of the door. A deep breath from the other side fogged the crack beneath it. Then, suddenly, something struck the wood. Not fists, not boots, something heavier. Samuel pushed Eleanor back gently. That wasn't a knock, he whispered. That was him checking the hinges. Eleanor's stomach twisted in fear. The voice outside went softer, almost coaxing. Eleanor, open the door, and no one gets hurt. Samuel's voice rose, stronger now. You won't touch her, Vane. A slow laugh drifted through the wall. Samuel Carter. I wondered if you'd be here. Samuel stepped closer to the door. You're not laying a hand on her. Oh, I won't have to lay a hand on her, Vane replied. If she gives me the box. Eleanor felt cold creep up her spine. How does he know? She whispered. How could he possibly know I found it? Samuel's expression softened, heavy with guilt. Because I sent a message, Samuel said quietly. Eleanor's head snapped up. What? Samuel? Squeeze's eyes shut briefly. I sent word to a friend, to warn others Thomas's secret might resurface. But the message must have fallen into the wrong hands. Eleanor's breath caught painfully. So you brought him here? Samuel shook his head urgently. No, I tried to stop him, Eleanor. I swear it. I came to protect you. The lamplight flickered, illuminating the deep worry in his eyes. But outside, Vane chuckled again. You two finished whispering in there? Samuel stiffened. Then Vane's voice dropped into a growl that sent ice through Eleanor's bones. Eleanor, I will count to 5. After that, your door comes down. Eleanor clutched the box so tight her fingers went numb. Samuel, she whispered, what does he want? What is inside this box that he would kill for? Samuel turned to her. His voice was barely a breath. Something Thomas stole from him. Something he died to protect. Eleanor shook her head fiercely. No, Thomas never stole anything. Samuel looked at her with a pained expression. He didn't steal it for himself, Eleanor. He stole it to save someone. He stole it to save one. Vane shouted. Samuel's eyes widened. No time, he whispered. Eleanor, run to the back room. Bolt the door. Hide the box. No, she whispered. Samuel, I won't leave you. Eleanor, please, too. Eleanor backed away, the box held to her chest. I won't leave you alone with him. Samuel grabbed her shoulders. I would die before letting him harm you. Eleanor's breath shook violently. I've already lost Thomas, she whispered, tears streaming. I won't lose someone else tonight. Samuel's face softened, torn between fear and something deeper, something he had carried quietly for 20 years. But Vane shouted again, 3. The cabin door groaned as something slammed against it. Samuel shoved Eleanor toward the back room. Hide, Eleanor. Now. But she planted her feet firmly on the ground. No, Samuel's eyes widened. Eleanor, she lifted her chin, gripping the box like a shield. I'm not running away from the truth anymore. Samuel stared at her, a mix of fear, admiration, and despair filling his eyes. The door cracked loudly. 4. Snow blew through the window as the storm howled. Samuel moved in front of Eleanor, knife held ready. Eleanor, listen to me. If he gets inside, she whispered, then we face him together. Samuel's voice trembled. Eleanor, why? Her eyes filled. Because Thomas trusted you, and because I do too. For a moment, Pain washed across Samuel's face. And love. Old, buried, aching love. He opened his mouth to speak, but Vane roared, "5." The door splintered in two. A man stepped inside, tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a heavy coat dusted with snow. His eyes gleamed like steel. Two more figures stepped close behind him. Eleanor clutched the box. Samuel raised his knife. Vane smiled slowly. "Good evening," he said. "I believe you have something that belongs to me." He took one step forward, and Eleanor gasped, because something slipped from his coat. A letter, written in Thomas's handwriting. Her knees buckled. "Thomas gave you that," she whispered. Vane smirked. "Oh no, I took it the night he died." Eleanor's world spun. Samuel roared in fury and lunged. But Vane drew a pistol and pointed it straight at Eleanor's heart. "Move again," he warned Samuel softly, "and she dies first." Eleanor froze. Samuel stopped mid-step, chest heaving. Vane lowered the letter so she could see the writing. It was unmistakably Thomas's. But the signature, Eleanor staggered as she read it. It wasn't addressed to her. It was addressed to "my son." Her breath shattered. Samuel whispered, horrified, "Eleanor." Vane smiled coldly. "Yes, de my son. And guess what else?" He stepped closer, leveling the pistol. "I'm not the only one." Eleanor's heart nearly stopped, because the two men behind him stepped into the lamplight, and she recognized both faces. Faces she never imagined she would see again. The two men stepped fully into the lamplight, snow melting on their coats, shadows stretching behind them. Eleanor's breath froze in her chest as she stared at their faces, faces she knew, faces she had buried in grief long ago. The first man was tall, dark-haired, with the unmistakable eyes of Jacob Turner, the blacksmith's boy she used to feed bread rolls to when he was small. Except he wasn't small now. He must have been in his late 30s. The second was Silas Turner, his younger brother, quiet, thoughtful, the one who used to leave flowers on Eleanor's porch when she lost her infant daughter, then scurry away before she could thank him. Both men stood trembling, not with fear, but with something deeper, something that felt like confusion, pain, and anger all at once. Eleanor's voice cracked. "Jacob, Silas, why are you here? What is this?" Jacob stepped forward, jaw tight. "You should be asking that question of the man who married you." Eleanor staggered. "My husband, Thomas." Silas's voice shook. "Thomas Whitmore is our father." The room spun. The floor tilted. Eleanor felt the walls closing in around her. She gripped the table to keep herself from falling. "No," she whispered. "No, that isn't possible." Jacob's eyes burned. "Oh, it's possible. And true. Thomas was our father. He fathered us long before he met you." Eleanor's chest tightened painfully. But Thomas, he never told me." Jacob's voice rose sharply. "Exactly. He never told you. He never told anyone. He walked away from our mother before we were born." Eleanor's lips quivered. Their mother. The blacksmith's wife. A woman Eleanor had known, a woman who passed from fever when the boys were still young. A woman who had once told Eleanor quietly, tears in her eyes, "Some hurts you heal alone." Oh God! Eleanor's heart ached with a new, sharp pain. "You mean," she tried to speak through the trembling in her throat, "Thomas left her? Left you?" Silas nodded, eyes full of hurt. "He was gone before we took our first steps. But he left something behind, a letter. Our mother kept it hidden. It was found when she died." Vane lifted the letter he carried, waving it tauntingly. "This little message." Eleanor's eyes locked onto the handwriting. Thomas's handwriting. Samuel stepped slightly in front of her. "Jacob, Silas, don't let Vane twist the truth. You know Thomas. You know the kind of man he was." Jacob glared at Samuel. "We know he saved you, Samuel. That doesn't mean he saved us." Silas looked away. "We were abandoned, raised by neighbors, treated as charity." Eleanor's tears fell heavily. I didn't know," she whispered. "He never told me. Never mentioned." Jacob pointed at her chest. "That box he left you. That's all we want. Whatever truth is inside, we deserve to know it. And if you won't hand it over," Vane lifted his pistol, "I will take it myself." Samuel stepped forward instantly, knife raised. "You'll do no such thing." Vane smirked. "You think that knife frightens me, Carter?" Samuel didn't answer, but his stance shifted, ready to strike. Eleanor's heart hammered against her ribs. "Jacob, Silas," she whispered. "Thomas never mentioned you. Not once. That is true, but he never spoke of abandoning anyone. He never seemed like a man who would leave children behind." Jacob's voice cracked with bitterness. "People hide sins well, Eleanor." Silas looked down, his voice quieter, gentler. "Our mother, she never said a bad word about him, but she cried whenever she thought of him. We grew up wondering why he chose another life. Why he chose you." Eleanor pressed a hand to her chest. The box felt heavier, as if it knew every secret inside it. Vane stepped closer, eyes locked on Eleanor like a predator. "Open it," he demanded. "Now!" Samuel snarled. "You come one step closer, and I'll open you like a deer carcass." Vane only smiled. "Very protective, aren't you? Funny how two men in this room are willing to die for her, and only one of them ever belonged to her." Samuel tightened his grip. "Try me." Jacob suddenly slammed his hand on the table. "Enough," he shouted. "We didn't come here for blood. We came for truth. For answers we've waited a lifetime for." Silas swallowed hard. "We deserve to know what father left behind." Eleanor trembled. Jacob called Thomas father. The word struck like a blade. Eleanor whispered, voice breaking, "If you are truly Thomas's sons, then he wronged you more than he ever wronged me." Silas's eyes softened. "Then please, help us see what he left." Eleanor looked at the box. The simple wooden box marked, "Open only when you're ready." She didn't know if she was ready. She didn't know if she ever would be. Thomas had hidden this for years, protecting her, protecting them, protecting something far larger than she understood. But the truth had found her doorstep. She no longer had the luxury of waiting. Her hand shook as she reached for the latch. "Eleanor," Samuel whispered, "you don't have to do this with him pointing a pistol at you." She looked at him, eyes wet. "I have to do it because the truth is standing in this room." Jacob and Silas swallowed, the pain in their eyes unmistakable. Vane smirked, tightening his grip on the pistol. "Open it." Eleanor lifted the latch slowly. The metal clicked. The room fell utterly silent. Even the wind outside seemed to pause. Samuel watched her with worry and protective fury. Jacob watched with anger, swallowed by grief. Silas watched, as if afraid of what he wanted. Vane watched with hungry triumph. Eleanor raised the lid. Inside the box was a small folded cloth. No letters, no gold, no key, no confession, just a piece of fabric. Worn, thin, delicately stitched. Eleanor lifted it gently with trembling fingers. Her breath caught when she recognized the pattern. Her daughter's dress. The tiny linen dress she had sewn 30 years ago. The one their baby girl wore before fever took her. The one Eleanor buried with her. Her eyes widened in horror. "Where? How? Why?" Jacob whispered. "What is it?" Eleanor's voice broke entirely. This should have been buried. "With my child." Silas stepped closer, eyes filled with confusion. "Why would he keep that?" Eleanor pressed the dress to her chest, sobs choking her. "I don't know." But Samuel's face suddenly paled. He whispered, "Unless," Eleanor turned to him. "Unless what?" Samuel looked at her with devastation. "Unless your child didn't die." The room went silent. Vane's eyes gleamed. Jacob's breath hitched. Silas froze. Eleanor's heart stopped. My baby," she whispered. But the grave, Samuel stepped closer, voice shaking. "Eleanor, the doctor lied about Thomas. What if he lied about her?" Eleanor stumbled backward. No, no, she died. I saw the little coffin. I watched them bury." Samuel shook his head slowly. "You saw a box lowered. You never saw her inside it." The realization struck her like a physical blow. Her knees buckled. Jacob grabbed her arm to keep her from falling. Eleanor gasped, choking on her own breath. "Then, where is she?" she whispered. Samuel looked at the tiny dress in her hands. "I think Thomas left that dress because he hoped one day you'd be ready to find her." Eleanor stared at him, tears streaming. "Find her?" Samuel nodded. and Vane whispered behind her, "That's right." Eleanor turned. Vane smiled slowly. "Your daughter is alive." Eleanor's breath shattered completely. Jacob stepped back in shock. Silas's hand covered his mouth. Samuel whispered, "Eleanor, your child was taken." Eleanor's voice cracked as she begged, "Where is Esichi?" Vane lowered his pistol and whispered, "Closer than you think." Eleanor's breath trembled. Jacob looked confused. Silas stared. Vane whispered again, a whisper that blew the world apart. "She's in this room." Silas stepped forward, voice trembling. "No, he can't mean." Vane pointed at Silas. "Yes, I do." Silas froze. Jacob gasped. Eleanor shook her head violently. "No, no, that can't." Silas is. Vane smiled coldly. "Silas Turner is not a Turner." Eleanor's heart beat dangerously fast. "No," Samuel whispered. "Eleanor, Thomas saved your daughter." Eleanor stared at Silas, his soft eyes, his gentle nature, the peace he carried even in fear. Her voice trembled. "Silas, show me your birthmark." Silas stiffened. Jacob turned to him in shock. "What birthmark?" Eleanor's tears fell faster. A small mark, shaped like a crescent, just above her left shoulder. She was born with it. Silas swallowed. Slowly, very slowly, he pulled his coat aside and lowered the collar of his shirt. Eleanor stepped forward, hands shaking, breath gone, world collapsing. And there it was, a small, pale crescent mark, exactly where it had been on her newborn daughter. Eleanor's scream tore out of her like a lifetime of brokenness. Her daughter, her baby, alive, standing inches from her. Silas's eyes filled with tears. "Mother." Before Eleanor could speak, Vane cocked the pistol and pointed it at Silas. Eleanor cried out, "No." Vane smiled. "I didn't come for the box. I came to finish what should have been done 30 years ago." He pulled the trigger. The gunshot exploded, and Eleanor screamed. The gunshot tore through the cabin, shaking the very air, ripping through Eleanor's scream, drowning every sound in a deafening blast. Silas staggered back. Eleanor lunged forward with an agonized cry. And no, but instead of falling, Silas clutched his shoulder, gasping as blood seeped through his coat. The bullet had struck him high, painful, bleeding, but not fatal. Samuel didn't waste a breath. He threw himself at Vane with a roar that belonged more to a wounded animal than a man. They crashed into the wall, knocking the lantern to the floor. Flames danced dangerously close to the dry wooden boards. Jacob ran to Silas, catching him before he fell. "Silas, hold on, hold on." Silas winced, groaning, voice trembling. I'm all right. It's just the shoulder." But Eleanor wasn't listening. Her hands were already on Silas, clutching his face, brushing his hair back like she used to do with her daughter a lifetime ago. Her voice broke into sobs. "My child, my baby, my sweet girl." Her words dissolved as she cradled him, tears falling onto his coat. Silas stared up at her, shaken beyond words. "Mother," he whispered, voice cracking with disbelief and emotion. "Is it true?" Eleanor pressed her forehead to his. "Yes, yes, my love. You are mine." He closed his eyes, overwhelmed. But the moment didn't last. Across the room, Vane wrestled with Samuel, the two men crashing into chairs, smashing through the table leg, sending the wooden box skidding across the floor. Flames began licking up the fallen lantern wick, growing hotter. Samuel grunted, struggling to hold back Vane's strength. "Jacob," Samuel shouted, "get Eleanor and Silas out." But Jacob didn't move. He stood frozen, not from fear of the fire, not from Vane, but from the truth that had just detonated inside him. His brother, the man he protected his whole life, was not his brother. He whispered, voice shaking like a child's, "Silas, tell me it's not true." Silas swallowed, pain in his eyes. I don't know anything." "Jacob, I didn't know. I swear it." But Jacob's world had shattered. His entire life, their childhood poverty, their bond, the mother they buried together, all cracked apart. Silas reached for him. "Jacob, please." Jacob's voice trembled. You're not my blood." Silas's face twisted in anguish as he whispered, "Brother, blood or not, I am yours." Jacob's jaw trembled. But before he could speak, Vane slammed Samuel into the wall, knocking the knife from Samuel's hand. Eleanor gasped. Samuel collapsed to one knee. Vane grinned and raised the pistol again. This time he aimed directly at Eleanor. "No!" Samuel shouted, scrambling to his feet. But Vane stepped back, keeping the pistol trained on Eleanor's heart. "You're a stubborn woman," Vane hissed. "Thomas should have let you die with the child." Eleanor froze. Snow blew in through the cracks in the window. Silas pushed himself in front of her. "If you want her," he spat, "you'll have to kill me first." Vane smirked. That was the idea. Eleanor clutched Silas, dragging him behind her, voice trembling with fury and fear. "You will not harm my child." Vane laughed a low, sick laugh. "You have no idea what Thomas stole from me." Samuel swayed to his feet, blood on his lip. "Thomas didn't steal anything. He saved Eleanor's daughter. From you." Vane's eyes flashed with rage. "He took what was mine." Eleanor stared at him, horrified. "Mine," she whispered. "My baby wasn't yours. She never was. She never." Vane cut her off. "Her mother owed me. You think fever took her?" "No. She couldn't pay her debt, so I took the child as payment. Thomas got in the way, swapped her for another infant, spirited her away, and buried the wrong body." Eleanor's hand flew to her mouth. "My God!" Silas, the child she carried, sang to, nursed, had been taken by this monster. And Thomas, the man she loved, had risked everything to rescue her. Vane continued. "Thomas thought hiding her with the blacksmith's family would protect her. But I always knew she'd resurface." His eyes narrowed. "Just took 30 years. The flames behind him rose, spreading along the wall." Eleanor trembled. "You will never touch her again." Vane stepped closer. "I will take what is owed." He cocked the pistol, but Samuel lunged, shouting, "No." Vane swung the gun toward Samuel. 1 second. 1 breath. Silas gasped. Jacob screamed. Eleanor felt her soul leave her body. The pistol fired, boom. Silence. For a moment, the world went still. Then, the gun dropped from Vane's hand. He stumbled backward, staring at his chest. A knife, Samuel's knife, was buried deep beneath his ribs. Samuel collapsed beside him, chest heaving. "You will not hurt them," he choked. Vane fell to the floor, gasping like an animal, blood pooling around him. Jacob rushed to his side, not to help him, but to grab the pistol and kick it across the room. Silas pressed a hand to his own wound. Eleanor held him close. The flames climbed higher, smoke thickening. "Samuel," Eleanor cried, "we have to get out." He nodded weakly but couldn't stand. Jacob lifted Silas. Eleanor reached for Samuel. "Come, lean on me." But Samuel looked toward the spreading flames. "The fire's blocking the front door," he rasped. Jacob cursed. "The windows." They ran to the window, but the wood around it had already caught fire. Silas's voice was faint. We're trapped." Smoke thickened, choking the air. The cabin walls glowed with heat. Samuel grabbed Eleanor's wrist, eyes burning with determination. "There is another way," he rasped. "Thomas built a tunnel under the cabin years ago." Eleanor froze. "A tunnel?" Samuel nodded. "Only he and I knew. He built it in case Vane ever returned." He pointed weakly toward the bedroom. "The entrance is under the bed." Jacob rushed into the room. "Found it." Eleanor tried to pull Samuel with her. "Come, we have to go now." But Samuel pulled his arm back, shaking his head. "Eleanor, you take Silas. And Jacob, go now." Eleanor's eyes widened with horror. "No." "Samuel, you're coming too." Samuel's knees buckled. He fell to the floor. I can't move, not fast enough." The smoke, the fire, he coughed violently. "Samuel," Eleanor cried. He grabbed her hand. "Go, please. For Thomas. For your daughter." "I won't leave you here," she whispered, crying. Samuel's voice broke with emotion. "Eleanor, I loved you once. I never stopped. But you must save her." The flames roared behind them. Silas cried out, "Mother, we have to go." Jacob shouted, "The ceiling's about to collapse." Samuel squeezed Eleanor's hand one last time. "Live," he whispered. A beam fell, flames exploding across the floor. Silas reached for Eleanor. "Mother, please." The heat burned her face. The ceiling groaned. Samuel whispered, "Go." Eleanor screamed, but she let Jacob drag Silas toward the tunnel. She turned back one last time, reaching out for Samuel, but the flames surged between them. Samuel disappeared in the smoke. A beam crashed down. Eleanor screamed his name, "Samuel," and then the entire roof began to fall. Jacob pulled her into the tunnel. The wooden door slammed shut behind them. The cabin above them collapsed. The fire roared, and inside the dark passageway, Eleanor collapsed to her knees, sobbing, her daughter bleeding, her cabin burning. Samuel gone. The truth revealed. The world shattered. And far above them, the fire consumed the last place Thomas had ever called home. The tunnel trembled, and somewhere in the darkness ahead came the echo of footsteps. Not theirs, not friendly. Someone else was waiting. Smoke drifted down the narrow tunnel like a ghostly ribbon, fading into the cold earth as Eleanor crawled forward, heart pounding, tears streaking her soot-covered face. She heard Silas's labored breaths ahead of her, Jacob's hands gripping his brother's coat, dragging him when he grew too weak to move. The sound alone nearly tore her apart. Her son, her child she thought she buried, bleeding, suffering, because of a truth uncovered too late. Eleanor crawled faster. Behind them, the cabin groaned above as it burned. Her home, her memories, her last tie to Thomas, collapsing piece by piece. It felt like losing him all over again. But she had no time to grieve. Someone else was in the tunnel. They heard distinctly footsteps, slow, deliberate, echoing through the narrow passage. Silas gasped, "Mother, someone's following." Jacob turned, lifting the pistol he'd taken from Vane. "Let them come," he growled. "I'll handle it." "No," Eleanor whispered fiercely. "You will not kill. Not tonight. We've had enough blood." But the footsteps grew louder. Closer. Eleanor grabbed Silas's hand. "Keep moving," she urged. They pressed on through the earthen tunnel Thomas had carved long ago, perhaps knowing one day it would save the very child he rescued. Smoke hung low, and Silas coughed weakly. "Jacob, I can't breathe." Jacob gritted his teeth. "You hold on. Don't you dare leave me. Not after all this." Eleanor's heart cracked. Jacob loved Silas fiercely, not by blood, but in the truest way a brother could. The tunnel sloped upward. A glimmer of moonlight flickered through a gap in the boards ahead. "The exit," Jacob murmured. He pushed the final wooden plank upward. Cold night air rushed in, freezing their lungs, but saving them from the smoke. Jacob climbed out first. He lifted Silas with Eleanor's help, laying him gently in the snow. Eleanor emerged last, trembling with exhaustion, grief, and relief. The night was silent except for the distant crackle of the burning cabin. Her home was gone, but her child lived. She knelt beside Silas, pressing cloth to his wound. "We need to get you warm," she whispered, and stitched, and fed, and Silas caught her wrist gently, his eyes soft. "Mother," he said the words so delicately it fractured her heart anew. "I'm all right. Only grazed." She kissed his forehead. No, you're not all right. But you will be. I will make sure of it." Jacob looked away, overcome. Eleanor touched his arm. "Jacob, you did not lose a brother tonight. You gained a mother." Jacob's eyes filled. I don't know how to accept that." Eleanor cupped his cheek, voice warm and trembling. "You don't have to know. We will learn together." A long, soft moment passed between them, a new family forming in the cold snow. Then, footsteps crunched behind them. Eleanor rose, heart thundering. From the tunnel exit emerged a figure, limping, coughing, soot-covered, falling to his knees in the snow. "Samuel." Eleanor ran to him. He was alive, barely. His shirt was scorched, his skin reddened by heat, and his breath shallow, but his eyes still held that fierce, unwavering devotion. "Eleanor," he whispered. She fell beside him, wrapping her arms around him. "You fool," she sobbed. "You brave, foolish man. You should have come sooner. He smiled faintly. I told you, I would die before letting him harm you. She pressed her, forehead to his. You're not dying. Not tonight. He winced. I saw him fall. Vane. He won't rise again. Eleanor closed her eyes. A dark chapter had ended, but there was still light. She helped Samuel stand. Jacob supported him on the other side. We must get to the Turner barn, Jacob said. It's closest. They moved together, a broken but unyielding little family, toward the warm glow of lantern light in the distance. Inside the barn, warmth radiated from the horses. Jacob lit an oil lamp. Silas sank onto a hay bed. Samuel collapsed against the stall door, coughing weakly. Eleanor tore strips of linen, cleaning Silas's wound with gentle hands. No one spoke at first. The fire of truth still burned too hot inside them all. Finally, Silas whispered, Mother, why did Thomas hide me? Eleanor paused, tears falling on her hands. He didn't hide you, she whispered. He saved you. From Vane. Silas asked. Eleanor nodded. Your mother, the woman who raised you, she kept you safe until she passed. Thomas wanted to tell me the truth every day, I think. But he feared it would put you in danger. He feared Vane feared what might follow. Silas swallowed. He must have loved you deeply. Eleanor's tears glowed in the lamplight. And I loved him. She turned to Samuel. And you knew. Samuel nodded. Thomas trusted me. He knew Vane would return someday. He made me swear that if you ever opened the box, I would protect you both. Eleanor whispered. So he planned everything, even after death. Samuel offered a tired smile. He had a good heart. He wanted you to live, to heal, to find light again. Eleanor's hands shook. And now I have found it, she whispered, brushing Silas's hair. In a son I thought I buried, and in a man who stayed when I needed him most. Samuel lowered his gaze shyly. I only did what any man with a heart would do. Eleanor's voice softened. You did what someone who loves me would do. Silas blinked. Jacob looked away to give them privacy. Samuel's breath hitched. Eleanor, I. But before he could finish, Eleanor pressed a finger to his lips. Not tonight, she whispered. Tonight we rest. Tomorrow, we begin again. Samuel nodded, and Eleanor leaned her head on his shoulder. The barn glowed with quiet, fragile peace. The horses shifted softly. The wind eased. Snow drifted lazily outside, illuminated by lantern light, soft and gentle like a blessing. By morning, smoke rose from the ashes of Eleanor's cabin, but she was not broken. She stood before the ruins with Silas on one side, Jacob on the other, and Samuel behind her, strong despite his injuries. Silas took her hand. Mother, what now? Eleanor watched the sun lift over the valley. Now, she said softly, we build something new, something honest, something ours. Jacob whispered. And Father, Eleanor closed her eyes as memories warmed her chest. He lives in every truth revealed, and in every love we choose from this moment forward. The wind brushed gently through her hair. Eleanor looked at Samuel. You save his secrets, she whispered, and you save my life. Samuel's voice trembled. I would save you 1,000 times, Eleanor. She stepped closer, taking his hand. And I would welcome you home 1,000 times. He pulled her into a gentle embrace, warm, steady, filled with a love that had waited years to be spoken. Silas smiled, leaning into Jacob. The winter sun rose fully. A new family stood together, a new beginning, in a place once marked by loss, now planted seeds of healing. And Eleanor, for the first time in decades, felt whole. Her heart whispered to the quiet morning, Thank you, Thomas, for every sacrifice that brought us here. The wind carried the words away like a prayer, and the story closed on a valley filled not with sorrow, but with light. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Tales from the Old West, where every tale brings warmth, wisdom, and the beauty of a life well lived.